This is the cost-sharing agreement with the Troy Birmingham Intermodal Transit Facility, Professional Engineering and Design Services, E6.
Madam Mayor,
Pardon?
would you like someone to move the
Yes.
resolution?
Yes.
Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves the interlocal agreement between the City of Troy and the City of Birmingham, which equally divides the cost of the professional engineering and design services for the Troy Birmingham Intermodal Transit Facility. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the interlocal service agreement on behalf of the City of Troy, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
Question, and then I'll get on to how I feel about this. But my first question would be, have we done anything with Grand Saco about extending the time frame on this or waiving the deadline?
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We did approach Grand Saco about the idea of extending the deadline. At the time that we approached them, their financial team effectively said that right now it's premature to agree to an extension in time. And as well, in the agreement, there is a provision that we could purchase the land from them for $1.5 million. So it's really not in their better interest right now to have any discussions with us in that front.
Okay. Further?
And the other thing, Mayor, is, my position with respect to this project is the same, and I don't think it's a wise use of money, especially when funds are short. I don't want to reiterate what I've said in the past. If anybody has any questions about my position, they can certainly contact me individually, but I don't want to rehash something that's already been discussed here on a couple of occasions.
Further discussion of the motion?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Eisenbacher and then Councilwoman Broomfield.
My concern is that we don't have the match funding committed that I've seen from this. I haven't seen a commitment from the state in our minutes. I haven't seen a commitment from the state or federal at this point.
Mr. Murphy, you want to respond
I've
to
seen
that?
the applications.
Sure. Thank you again, Mayor and members of council. The state of Michigan did provide a grant of $350,000 for us to do the first set of plans to get to the 30% phase. Now what we need to do is take it from 30% to completion so that we can make the project indeed shovel ready if we are to seek any federal stimulus funds. Likewise, for us to be able to move forward with the project, we have to have these designs completed. Typically, these design costs are going to be borne by us, and then we will seek federal and state funds for the actual construction costs.
Okay. Any of the users of the facility, the service providers, taxi, car rental, etc., have any of those been identified?
There have been some discussions regarding the possibility of equity into the facility, but more than likely it's not going to be an equity position. It's going to be a lessee, tenant situation. Exactly right.
Do we have the firms that are interested identified?
There are a number of different firms that have been identified. They want to see exactly what the plan is going to look like. There is a car rental company that is interested. There are 2 black sedan companies that still express interest in having a space available at this location. There are some other options that we are exploring as well, and one that you brought up, which was the fractional car rental ownership groups. That's still something that we're actively exploring too.
Okay.
You through? Councilwoman
Yes for now.
Brookfield?
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, so some of the questions that Councilman Eisenbacher asked were mine. So what I understand here is, because when I first read that, I thought it was awfully premature that we were going ahead with plans when we're still trying to raise funds. But I understand the concept that as we move ahead, it allows for grants or more monies to come in, and if we stay and don't move ahead, then that monies would not even be available. Is that correct?
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. Based on that, just a hypothetical question for you. So we move ahead with all of this at right now, $421,000 for these plans, and our fella keeps lobbying Congress or Lansing, and what happens when we don't get all the money we need to build this? And we've already invested all this money into it.
I feel very confident that the project has very good legislative support in Washington, D.C. and in Lansing, and we have a good team together with Clark Hill and with Hubbell Roth and Clark. And actually, I do want to say thank you to Hubbell Roth and Clark for helping us advance our relationship with CN further than we've had it before. So we have a very good team of people working on this, and they all are pointing in the right direction to solve this issue. I know that doesn't answer the question about the big what if, and that I can't answer for you. That is a risk that you do have. There's no doubt about it, but I feel very comfortable that it's a very small risk, and that you have to spend this money if you want to get that money. So it's a risk that you have to take in order to get the request for funds.
I have spoken in favor of us moving ahead with the transit facility a number of times, and one of the things I'm hearing from people out in the community and people who are experts at looking at why we need such a facility, and one of the things is that a lot of the folks that come to Troy to work here in Troy in our shopping areas and our restaurants and various areas of the city do not live in Troy. They live in other communities and they come here, and this would afford them another way to come to Troy. Also, we have the ability for people that live within Troy to travel in other means other than with a car. And one of the things we looked at, again, when we did the future study, was looking at other means of transportation other than just vehicle transportation. And I also think that because we are working with another community, and because even though it is a Troy-Birmingham project, it really is a regional type of thing that would happen here, that the chances are greater in getting monies for something like that, rather than if it was standalone just for Troy and only benefiting Troy, that the gains are much broader than that. And so those are the things that I've heard, which makes me feel like we are moving in the right direction. I wish we had assurances that we were getting the money right now, but of course every community does.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard.
Yeah, just one thing, and maybe I'm missing something, but you mentioned that this would provide an additional way for people to get to Troy, and I'm curious as to what that is. I might be misunderstanding your comments or the intention of this facility.
Well, the ease in which to come to the community, I should say, because yes, the train still does run on those tracks there, but people have to take sort of a different route to get there. Also, there is a combination of joining together and probably an extension of the services that are already provided within Troy, but more of an organizational effort with them. I'm speaking of bus, cabs, other joint ventures of transportation that would occur. And I know what you're getting at is that those are already offered within Troy, but they aren't centrally located.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
Yeah, unless we're going to build low-income housing there, people still are going to have to get there. And low-income housing is the only way you can afford to live in a home and work at any of the retail establishments that are replacing our high-paid white-collar and engineering jobs that are being driven out of the city by the economy primarily. My concern more so relates to the fact of allocation of resources. We do have a lot of really important needs that I think are much higher on the scale of importance, foremost of which is maintaining our roads. And we must not neglect the fact that when we build this facility, it's going to have a maintenance cost, and it's going to eventually need to be replaced. You know, anytime we build a new facility, in order to keep the facility running, it has an additional cost, which today we don't have. So I just point that out to you. And, you know, our resources are dwindling. Unfortunately, property values continue to decline. If the economy were doing much better, I would say that our room for error is much greater. Today it's not, and next year it's going to be even tighter. So I think this is a very dangerous project to be spending money on. And, you know, again, if you get stimulus money for it, again, it has to be maintained. It has to eventually be replaced. But I guess I kind of got suckered into arguing my position again. I apologize for doing what I said I wasn't going to do at any rate.
Councilman Eisbacher?
I do want to try and keep this on the subject matter in front of us, not whether or not we need the project, because we've had that vote several times in the past.
Right.
My concern is this is a very big step in the process, and my feelings is that we're not ready for this step yet, primarily because at this step we're putting pen to the paper. I haven't seen a list of design criteria, what you're looking for in terms of you're accommodating car rental, the ride share, bicycle storage, rollerblade storage, or personal transportation storage, taxis, or black cabs, you said, the train facilities, and what percentage of the facility, what design criteria we're going to have in terms of the maintenance, which was brought up. I know we've talked privately, and I brought it up at one of our meetings, that it's very important that it not have an ongoing maintenance cost from the city. And to move forward, we're writing a blank check at this point because we don't have a lot of those things ironed down and agreed between our communities of Birmingham and Troy and the other parties that are going to be participating in this.
Mr. Murphy?
To a certain extent, a lot of those questions have been answered as we've gotten to the 30% phase. But we still do have a lot of work to get through between the 30% phase and getting to completion. So some of those details, you're right, still remain to be somewhat ironed out. However, I will tell you that the largest cost behind this is building the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And that singularly alone is driving the largest amount to doing this project. That price tag is most of that money. We know exactly what's going to be involved in doing that. The design for the building, you're really looking at a building that's only about 1,500 square feet to begin with. Maybe 2,000 square feet. It has the potential to be expanded, but as we mentioned before, we did not want to build a Phoenix Center. The Phoenix Center failed because it was too big and it didn't give you that comfort level. We always talked that this project was going to be designed on a smaller scale with the ability to expand it as it showed need to be expanded. The large question really is just finding that tenant for the space so that we can keep those operating costs covered completely. And that's a goal that you've set for us, and it's a goal that we're looking to try to meet.
One of the, if I may continue,
Yes,
Mayor.
go ahead.
One of the points that Councilwoman Kerwin brought up was the request for progress reports at the last meeting.
Yes.
I thought that was a very good request. Because obviously I'm learning stuff as you're speaking. What is the status of getting a progress report?
The next council meeting, we miswrote in the memo. It said March 2nd, Clark Hill would be here. It's actually March 23rd. Clark Hill will be at our next city council meeting. They will be the very first presentation on your agenda, because after they're done here, they'll also be going over to the City of Birmingham and providing an update as well as to where we are at that point. Now, something else I do want to point out to you is that tonight what you're approving is just the cost-sharing agreement between Troy and Birmingham.
Right.
Without this cost-sharing agreement, the City of Troy is 100% on the hook for doing any of the local design work cost as well. Keep that in mind.
Will this come back to us when we appoint a firm?
Well, we have an open contract with Hubbell, Roth, and
Right.
Clark. That's why that is also included in the package for your review.
Right.
Okay. Is there any update on the ownership of the property on the other side of the tracks?
Clark Hill can bring that up to date for you. I can tell you, though, that we have had conversation with ITC, who actually has the right-of-way that's next to the CN right-of-way. And it looks as though we can accomplish most of the tunneling work within those two rights-of-way. So we can get the platform in place, but then there is the question of the interconnectedness to the City of Birmingham. And Birmingham has had some regular conversations, and I know we can have an update at the March 23rd meeting.
Yes, I appreciate the fact, Mr. Murphy, that you're saying that this is just the cost-sharing agreement with Birmingham that is on tonight, that we have other items that will come to council to vote on. So this is not the final end of this. Councilwoman Kerwin?
Just a couple of things. In response to the request for additional information, I appreciate that Clark Hill will come on March 23rd. I would just suggest that it not necessarily always be in a formal presentation. It could always include a report that kind of background information is really very helpful. I don't know that we can get into the detail that Council Member Eisenbacher sees. I understand the purpose of this. I appreciate the discussion at the table tonight. It really has been good. I do, especially Council Member Broomfield, who really laid it out so succinctly. So this is what this does. This actually does prepare us to receive those matching funds. Without this, we really are nowhere. So with that, I will be supporting it. In truth, we've had a great deal of discussion about the concept of it. Some of us agree, some of us don't. But to that end, I would support this.
Further discussion of this cost-sharing agreement with Birmingham? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilman Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Sarlett?
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilor Buckalini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item is the confirmation of the interim appointment of Deputy Police Chief Gary Mayer as acting police chief. I'd like to move the resolution. Do I have support?
Support.
I get to do a few things.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Fleming, that we approve the confirmation of the appointment of Deputy Chief Gary Mayer as acting police chief of the City of Troy as requested by the city manager. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilor Fleming?
Yes.
Sarlett?
Oh, yes.
Kerwin?
Certainly.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilor Buckalini?
Yes, ma'am.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations.